I realized today, and I realized this a little bit because I was thinking about something that we talked about in the last episode. Um, I was recording, or I was editing last week's episode
About time you
today.
contributed something around here.
Yeah. And there was something that we talked about a little bit, and that was the concept of propaganda. We were joking about my my website being my writing, and I joked that there would also be a little bit of propaganda in there. And you're like, what sort of propaganda? And
I have no recollection of this.
you have no recollection of that? All right, well then this is a new take for you. So I've always been of the opinion that writers, storytellers, filmmakers, especially, are propagandists. They're visionaries for the future who want to change the world, but they're not sure how to do it. So they have a vision of how the world will change, what it would look like, and then they try to quote unquote incept the mind of others into saying, that's what I think would be a good idea, we should do that. And I think that storytelling and filmmaking especially is a form of inception. And I think Christopher Nolan intended it that way. I think that Inception is his his vision of what filmmaking and more specifically what storytelling is. Does that make sense?
None whatsoever.
So in Inception, they go inside the minds of people. They go inside their dreams. Yeah. Q Sandman. They go inside people's dreams and they incept ideas into their dreams, so that when they wake up, their unconscious brain will have contributed a thought to their conscious brain, and they will unconsciously come up with something that was incepted. And that is,
they believe that the genesis of the idea comes from within versus from somebody else.
Whereas it might have been, yeah. This is also known as subliminal messaging, and it's a thing that many filmmakers do. I don't think that there's any filmmaker out there who doesn't do this to some extent. Corey, you want to use ska music in your movies, and technically speaking, you want to use it positively because you like ska music and you want other people to appreciate ska music. So you using ska in a positive sense in movies would be your version of subliminally getting people to enjoy ska. That you're incepting the enjoyment of maybe not the genre itself, but maybe certain songs.
I accept your theory. I accept your hypotheses. However, this film would be overt in saying, listen to fucking ska music because it's fucking brilliant. Like, it's nothing subliminal about it, motherfucker.
So, okay, that's fair. Let me reiterate here. Every filmmaker does it, and some of us are subtle about it, and some of us are not so subtle.
Heyo.
Did you see the movie last year? Yeah, it was last year. Don't Look Up. I think we talked a little bit about it.
No, I haven't seen it. It's on my list. I have it saved on my Netflix. That's the Leo DiCaprio, Jennifer Lawrence. There's a meteor going to hit the earth. Yeah. And everybody's like, nobody gives a fuck.
Yeah.
But it's mostly like a satire on how the world just ignores issues.
It's especially talking about America and how America tends to just kind of, if there's any major issue, they kind of shrug it off like, oh, whatever you say is, you think that it's a big issue, but it's not a big issue until we decide it is. And that's kind of what the message of the film is, but it's so blatant in what it's trying to get across. And I enjoyed it like watching it, and then every single time I've thought about it since, it just kind of diminishes in my brain. I'm like, ugh, this is just not as good. It's just not it's cloying in my brain. Yeah, it feels like it's just burrowing in. It's annoying in a.
You should just not watch old episodes of this.
It could be. It could be. No. It was a well-made film. It was just like it was subliminal messaging at its worst, I would say.
Or best.
No, okay. because
that's
everybody saw what it was doing. Subliminal messaging works best when the person doesn't realize what's happening, what the message is. They can realize it later, but in the moment they shouldn't be able to.
It kind of harkens back.
I think about it. Yeah, I think about it a lot. So that's okay. If you're somebody who just overthinks things like me, and you come to this conclusion, that's okay, like whatever. But most people are not going to be coming to that conclusion. So it's okay to be a little bit less subtle, but you can't be overt. It's a
fine line to strike a balance in shows and movies to like incept the idea of like something feel good or a thought or, you know, something that sticks out in your head. And I always think of this quote, harkens back to Futurama season 4, I want to say, where Bender gets lost in space and he ends up meeting God, and God teaches him how to be a god, basically, with the one quote that I like to think I live my life by. Like, this was my producer's mantra when I was in film school. If you've done things right, people won't be sure you've done anything at all.
Yeah.
That's the key.
You did say that a lot when we were at school.
If you were producing, because that's how I kind of try to do my producing, is if I've done it right, you won't even be aware that I've done anything. It's all just smooth sailing, son. So that's how I rolled.
That right there, I would argue, is a good example of moral subliminal messaging, where writers and storytellers and filmmakers are not trying to get a political idea across. And this is actually far more common. This is far more common, where a showrunner or a filmmaker is trying to get a more philosophical idea across, something that people will grasp on a very fundamental level. I mentioned The Good Place. The Good Place was kind of like almost teaching people about this concept. They were like, let's just teach people about moral philosophy, whereas many people in the past have kind of just incepted little ideas here and there.
Yeah, that show was entirely Front Street when it came to ethics.
The Front Street, just like Front Street.
The Good Place is the poster boy of ethical television.
Exactly. But
poster girl, depending on your view.
But basically, like the most common thing that filmmakers or writers or musicians will try and do is try and incept like a moral idea into people's heads about being better, sometimes worse. Usually the musicians who will incept ideas into people's brains of like, actually you should be like this, and that actually is very toxic. Those musicians usually get called out very quickly, you know.
Well, they also, I think to any, extension, when it comes to that, creating controversy creates discussion, creates remembering. Like, like punk music is all about anarchy, or and kind of fighting the power and stuff like that. Like, it's a lot of rebellious music, and so like that created the controversy, and I think that's part of the reason why punk has stuck around. And I think that's why an artist would kind of strive for that. You want to have discussions. You want to, it makes it not forgettable. There's movies out there you see and you're like, that's cool. But then, you move on and you never really think about it again. But the movies that kind of stick with you are the ones that create controversy in your head and almost fight what you believe by accepting another idea into your head. And you're like, oh, I've never thought of that. That's interesting. Like, and you have that moment. I think that's a goal of many filmmakers. Not all. I mean, some people just like to have those one-off and be one and done. I mean, some people Just make movies about working at a convenience store, and it fucking works.
And
so,
like, and in a TV show, not every episode has to have that moment. Like I've been rewatching Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Big surprise.
Shocking.
But that show, it does not every single episode requires like some big moral lesson. Like they'll try and put a moral lesson in there, but they don't try and like do like major like get this into your brain. Yeah, they don't do any of those. They do them occasionally. And they're always very, very like profound.
Yeah.
And well done.
Interesting.
But it's not like there are, some shows like I remember there was Big Bang Theory fell into this trap of like every episode had like, we have to learn something from this. And of course, because it was a sitcom, they never learned anything. Yeah. It was like a mainstream sitcom,
Yeah. I mean, the latter half of that show, almost every season was Sheldon's a fucking douche. How do we live with him? Oh, you know what? He's not that bad. Oh, wait. Now he's a douche again. Oh, he's not that bad. Like, they never learned it for like 6 seasons.
And then the finale was literally him saying, "Sorry guys, I know I can be difficult sometimes, but I won a Nobel, so be happy for me."
Yeah, like I was like, a big event happened and he apologized, but he's already had like 6 heartfelt speeches of like, I know I'm tough. I'm tough to live with. I'm an asshole. I know, but please love me anyway because I'm trying.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, he's trying. We'll keep loving him. And I don't know. The only reason I continue to watch that show is for Kaylee Cuoco, because it's just like I'd watch her on mute all day.
I only kept watching that show because my parents started watching it with me. So there was a woman who used to work in the winery that my mom owned, and very, very lovely woman. After like all my grandparents had died, she was like that age, and so I kind of bonded with her, and I would stay at her place whenever my parents went out of town. Like she would be like a person I would be the point of contact with. Yeah, kind of like an aunt, like a friend aunt. And she was kind of the first person I ever met who would binge watch stuff. And she had bought this was back when Big Bang Theory was still only in its 4th season. Like this is like 2010.
Yeah. That's harkening back.
So I was young. I was like 11, 12.
Don't fucking remind me.
And this was the first time I was like, oh, somebody can just watch a show just on repeat. And she just had like the first 4 seasons of Big Bang Theory on repeat at like all times. And she would just have it going because she loved to cook. And so she would just have it as background noise. Mm-hmm. And then that kind of that experience incepted into my brain of like, oh, I can use sitcoms to drown out my my background as well.
Or drunk thoughts and high opinions.
Or drunk thoughts and high opinions. Yeah, exactly. Plug. So for the show that we're currently doing,
I don't know. We're 13 minutes in, and I don't think we've really hit on anything. But I haven't seen you hit a bong yet.
I was gonna say,
I don't know what the fuck your problem is.
I took a hit. I'm very high right now. I have to tell you, I'm very high right now. I smoked like 4 bowls before this because I knew that I wasn't gonna be smoking in this room. So I'm a little fucked. But I'll hit it.
Well, we've talked about Big Bang Theory and Futurama and a movie from give or take 10 years ago. Have you watched anything more recent?
Oh, I did just get caught up completely with Better Call Saul.
Ooh, I still haven't started the last season, but how is that last season going?
Oh, I'm gonna talk about it without spoiling it. It is
I appreciate
incredibly intense. I don't remember.
How about this? Before you jump into it, how about we start the show properly?
Yeah, okay.
You know, does that sound good?
Fine.
All right. Cue the music. back. All right. Season 6, Better Call Saul. Hit me with some non-spoiler discussion. I still haven't watched this shit, and I'm really eager to do so.
Well, I think the best way to talk about it without spoiling it is to just talk about the sort of things that you feel while watching it. It is incredibly intense at all moments. Every single episode, every single act break, every single scene is so filled with tension that you don't want to stop watching. It's maybe one of the best seasons of television I've ever seen. It was broken up into 2 sections, kind of like how the new season of Stranger Things was, how the final season of Breaking Bad was, where
that seems to be a trend with a lot of television nowadays. Is they're like, hey, it's the last season, but we're breaking into 2. Yeah. Ozark did that. Stranger Things did that.
It's a marketing ploy. Having no idea about no education in marketing, I can tell you with absolute certainty that it is nothing more than a marketing ploy.
Oh yeah, because if you drop it all in 1 month, or if you drop it all at the same time, people are going to binge it for that 1 month on their subscription plan.
Breaking Bad,
and then they're going to axe it.
Exactly. Yeah, Breaking Bad was actually the first show I think that did it. Back in 2013 or 2012, actually,
because that was live TV. That was on AMC. Yeah, that wasn't on a streaming.
I know, but they did that back in 2012. Season 5A of Breaking Bad dropped in 2012, like September, and October, and then season 5B dropped in 2013 in August and September. So it was a full 11 months after.
Really? I don't remember.
Yeah, it was a full 11 months after the first season, or the first half of the season was released. First 8 episodes. And so here they decided to do the same thing, and I think that many people saw, because Breaking Bad became a standard of television after the series finale had aired. It just solidified itself as a
top five best television shows of all time.
Just right at the moment of its finale's release, it was like we have solidified ourselves as a top 5. And so many shows wanted to replicate that, and streaming was like, hey, this is also a great marketing ploy of dropping them like this last season, or just seasons over like in groups, first half chunks, here, second half here, instead of doing episode by episode. They're like, we can keep the binge going, but we can do it in like smaller doses, 4 episodes instead of 8, or 8 episodes instead of 13. Assholes withholding my yeah, exactly. Fuck those people.
It's my content and I want it now,
right? Anyway, mini shows.
I'm gonna start screaming that out the window like that commercial.
Harry Potter, like the movies, obviously did that, and then Breaking Bad was like the first TV show to do it, and so shows have just kind of followed in that trajectory. Yeah. And so Better Call Saul, obviously being the like direct, honorable prequel to pre-sequel. I'll call it the pre-sequel to Breaking Bad. It just fits to do it in that same, as we talked about last week, of 62 and 63 episodes between the 2 shows. Like it really fits them to have a very similar structure as well.
And how are your predictions lining up? How are those coming along?
I feel
in general,
I'll say a lot of things I predicted are true, but not in the way I predicted them. Things does that make sense?
Cryptic. No,
I'm trying not to spoil it for you, because you remember some of the things I talked about last week. So I don't.
No, I don't.
Oh, you do? Okay. Then I'll say most of my predictions.
See, the preconception about this whole endeavor that we do is that I'm pretty sober doing everything. But no, I can just hold my shit a lot better than most.
Fair enough.
I stand up during this show, and I can keep myself looking good. But at the end of it, I sit down at the we hit cut. I stop the show, and I'm like, "The fuck did we talk about?" Which is why if you ever see me kind of doing this motion, I'm writing down so I can remember the next day what the fuck we talked about.
That's fair.
Because I'm like,
that's fair. Then I will talk about. Then I will just talk about this. Most, I would say, 80% of my predictions are true, but all of the true predictions I made don't happen the way I expected them, or when I expected them.
Gotcha. Maybe. No, not really. But anyway.
Yeah, that I'll leave it at that. So it's great. I am so excited for the final episode. I'm on the edge of my seat just thinking about it. I was going to break it up into chunks. It's a solid 12. No humble 9 here. It's a solid 12. Yep, yeah, there you go. You know what? Maybe let's go with an even 15. I was gonna break it up into smaller chunks. I was like, I watched the first 3 episodes one night and then said, oh, I'll watch like 2 episodes, 3 episodes tomorrow.
Yeah, that's a rookie mistake.
And then the next night, I started.
You never
watching.
Can do that on a.
Oh, I
know.
That's
a rookie mistake, Graham.
I started watching the second night, and I turned on the 4th episode, and it got to the end, and I was like, oh my god, I want to keep going, and so I just let it go. Episode 4 or episode 5 was so like much better. And so I
go figure.
Yeah. And so I watched that, and then episode 6 even better, and each one just had me on the edge of my seat. The only surprising thing about
this anecdote is that that we're actually surprised that this happened.
I know. Well, that's just the thing is like you're gonna see exactly what I mean when you watch it, which you have to because you have to do it soon because I want to do a full episode just on like Better Call Saul and the Gilliverse.
The Gilliverse?
The Gilliverse. It's Gilligan, but they call it the Gilliverse. Which, interestingly enough, yes, he's the creator, but he has had very little to do with Better Call Saul since the 3rd season.
He directs the season or the series finale, I believe.
No, he directed the penultimate episode, the episode that just aired 2 days.
So who directed the final episode?
The co-creator, Peter Gould, who is the one who kind of is really running things. It's like with Parks and Recreation, how yes, Greg Daniels is on the list of 2 creators, but Mike Schur was the one who created and ran that show
it's
to
really
the
just
end.
Him.
And yeah, Greg Daniels directed an episode in the final season, one of the last 4 episodes. Yeah, he was there. He was in the writers' room throwing ideas out there, like Gilligan. He's been in the writers' room throwing out ideas. But this has been Peter Gould's show. This has been his endeavor into the Gilliverse, and so it's a fascinating thing. I've loved the music too. You know, the music in Breaking Bad, the theme song was very just kind of, this is network television theme song with maybe a little extra sauce, a little extra hot sauce on there because to make it. Yeah, it's a little dash of hot sauce to make it, not absolute shit. And here, this is interesting. There's a band. I'm forgetting their name right now, but they are from Albuquerque, and they took the chords. The singer and guitarist took the chords from, or the like notes from the Breaking Bad theme song, and then wrote a song which became the theme for Better Call Saul. So the like that whole guitar riff is based off of the notes.
All right, we'll save all the more trivia for our Better Call Saul.
I'll save that.
Save it in the bank.
It's just such a good show. If anybody has not seen that show, or Breaking Bad for that matter, binge either one of them. Start
They're
with
on Netflix,
Better Call Saul. Yeah, just go watch it. It's amazing. They're
I'd
both
almost
amazing.
say go watch Better Call Saul first, just because it'll kind of keep you more guessing if you've already seen Breaking Bad and you know where Saul ends up. So I think watching Better Call Saul would actually be I think it would make the show even better, because you won't know where it's heading.
That's very true. That's very true. Especially, I won't get into specifics, but like, with Gus and so on, like that is
all the characters that carry over. Yeah,
it's a great pre-sequel, because you can watch either of them in any order, and you get a completely different experience, but you still get the same content.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's such a I would love to be able to purge my brain of both of them and then watch it in the reverse order that I have.
I'm not going to tell you what I'd like to purge my brain of.
My fucking bullshit. I know I would.
For starters. No, it has. Talk about it. Peter Gould and Vince Gilliam did a great job behind the scenes, but then you got people in the front of the camera just flat out killing it. Bob Odenkirk is fantastic. Ray Seahorn.
Oh yeah.
Michael, what is his name? Michael Mando is
Michael Mando.
He's a tour de force in the show. Like you kind of he just kind of sneaks in as like you think he's just kind of a low level dirtbag, but he rises up throughout the show and does such a great job.
Really good.
He's we've talked about assassins in the past for like comedy, but he's kind of an assassin for drama and conflict. And he just just from what I know of the character, without even getting to season 6, like he walks that tightrope so well. I'm constantly shocked, and I think it was you who mentioned it. Like, you've watched this guy for a couple seasons, and it took you forever to figure out it's the fucking dude from Far Cry 3.
Yeah, he actually, really quick, Michael Mando rose to fame for being what is widely considered to be the greatest video game villain of all time, Vas Montenegro. You go on many lists. You go on any any
10.
website.
I don't think the top villain.
He'll be on top 10, but he is often number 1 on that top 10 list. You go, I've looked at like 5 different like top 10 lists of villains in video games, and he is almost always number 2 or number 1. Because he was so different in the moment that he came out. You know, this is 2012, 2013, and we'd never seen a villain that was so fully like he was a film villain in a video game. And honestly, he was a Breaking Bad character in a video game, so to speak.
He plays that role just so well that it stood out in this video game. Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if if that role
was his audition.
Yeah, like that got him into later stuff like in Better Call Saul. But he just plays this unhinged, insane dude in Far Cry 3, just tormenting the character relentlessly with his antics. It's just captivating. Like what happens to him, obviously he's the villain, so if something happens to him, I won't spoil it for anybody who hasn't played a 10-year-old game, but like you get kind of gut wrenched. You're like, oh damn.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. He's a terrific actor, and I hope that he goes far, because he's only 31.
Is he really? Don't tell me that.
Yeah, hold on. Let me
IMDb his ass while I sit here and reflect on the last
check this.
30 years of my life and how much of a piece of shit I am.
I just want to check.
Yeah, you look that up. I'm vamping.
Okay, sorry. He's 41.
Oh, good.
I apologize. I misread that earlier. He's 41, but like
I'm gonna need a minute. I'm gonna need a minute here. Gotta get my life in order. I'm 33, and you're telling me that this fucker is 31, and I'm like, what the fuck have I done with my life? I sit here and talk to your ass on Friday nights and do this shit. God, fuck it.
It's he's walked away.
Existential crisis over. Please continue.
All right. No, he's a fantastic actor, and I think that he has a lot in him. I actually am a little upset that he already has a minor role in the MCU, because I wish that they would give him a bigger role.
I think it's seeding. I think they're going to do more with that.
Yeah, maybe.
You know, I
hopefully, because he totally
they did a lot of great seeding
in
Homecoming, including himself as Marc Gagnon. I can't say the French word.
Yeah, but we've had 2 Spider-Man movies since then, and no sign of him.
Have you seen Morbius yet?
I have not, and I
don't intend to.
Do not care for more. I don't intend to. No, I don't care.
I'm going to give you some spoilers to Morbius in 3, 2, 1.
I already know all the spoilers.
I'm warning the viewers, fucker. I'm trying to think of them as well. I'm working here.
You think our viewers give a shit about?
I know they don't.
Morbius?
But anyway, spoilers for Morbius. At the end of the movie, they have the whole multiverse bullshit happen, and somehow Michael Keaton, who played the Vulture in Homecoming, ends up in Morbius's universe and teams up with Morbius at what can only be considered the beginnings of what might become the Sinister Six. Yeah, it is a horrible post-credit scene. Like, Marvel has done such a great job with those post-credit scenes thus far, but Sony is just dropping the ball everywhere, and it's super sad. But anyway,
I have to say, my absolute...
Venom and Morbius is it's bad. Just don't even.
No. I was gonna say my favorite Marvel end credit scene so far is officially Patton Oswalt playing a drunk dwarf, introducing One Direction.
On Eternals, yeah, that tracks.
Sorry, alcoholic dwarf.
It still works, but anyway. So I think I'm thinking that they may bring in Scorpion. It might not be in a Spider-Man film, but they're going to bring back Michael Mandow as Marc Gagnon, who's the Scorpion. Because we did see a version of Scorpion in No Way Home, in like the sparkly multiverse. There was a Scorpion in there, a Scorpion character. So we might see him eventually, but because that would be a really fun character. I don't know. Have you how far have you gotten in the Spider-Man video game? Because the Scorpion pops up in that.
I've beaten the story of
so you've
the first Spider-Man game. I just need to. I have like 14% left on completion.
Well, 1-2, fucker. Let's go. And then you got the DLC and Miles Morales, right?
Correct. That is.
What a fucking great game that one is too. Like, it's coming out on PC soon. They're dropping that on Steam.
Didn't it already?
It might have come out already, but it's long story short. Like, I've just seen comparison videos to PS5 because they did like an ultra wide mode, and it's got the high fidelity and the frame rates and stuff.
I think that the reason a lot of people are a lot of developers are bringing games to Steam right now is because of the Steam Deck.
Mm-hmm. I saw our man Vince from the Electronic Playground there in Vancouver rocking the Steam Deck with Spider-Man, and I was like, if there was ever a reason to get a Steam Deck, that would be it.
Yep, they're very good. I have one reserved just in case. Like, I really want one because there was like $5 to reserve for when it comes out. I was like, okay, I'll do it for
how much are they
when
again?
They start shipping. They're like $400 for the base model with like 64 gigs of space. $500 for the next up model with 250, and then like 650 for.
Cool. So out of my budget range. Got it. Thanks.
Yeah, basically.
But I got enough. I got all 3 consoles sitting back here.
Yeah, I know. Well, basically, what I would use it for at this point is mobile Elden Ring and Vampire Survivors, the 2 best games of 2022. Vampire Survivors is still so much fun, and I demand you play it. It's literally $3.99. Like, you're hurting nobody.
Put it on Switch, then we'll talk. I know. It looks like a great Switch game. But in the meantime, I've been playing Ghost of Tsushima. Have you checked that one out yet?
Yes, talk about Ghost of Tsushima. I've only played like an hour of it back when it came out, so tell me more.
I will say, I'm going to start with the bad and then move to the good.
Okay.
I am shocked that this game got such great reviews overall, because there's a lot of little things like clipping that kind of seemed really funny. Like for a PS5 game, PS4, PS5 kind of hybrid game, I feel like it should have been a little bit more polished in a lot of ways. But that being said, like that's my only real complaint about it. It's super easy to overlook all that bullshit and just enjoy this game for what it is, which is just a nice open world, not a sandbox open world like Skyrim, but just an open world game where they plop you down and they're like, here's a story. But you also have just a bountiful amount of side missions you can do and go and just explore this island, which is beautiful. Like this game is gorgeous for what it is. Overall, like I said, I see a little bit of graphical bullshit here and there, but like the sunrise, the sunsets, and just the environments, it looks so good. The combat as well is super fun. It's somewhere between Neo and Sekiro in that you're doing a lot of blocking, and precision blocking will help you, but it's not required. Even if you're just blocking but encountering, you're still good. And then you're doing your hack and slash bullshit, and it's just super fun. You're changing stances based on which enemy you're fighting. So like sword fighters, you do one stance. If you're fighting a shield guy, you have another. If it's a big hulking brute, you unlock another stance. And so there's a little strategy there. But the best part of this game is just the immersive story and world that it brings you into as Jin Sakai, a lord there in Tsushima, and helping free his island from the Mongols. And I'm just, I love the attention to detail this game does. From like, you'll be riding along the main path and you'll just see like dead bodies and the atrocities of war. Like they don't shy away from that kind of bullshit. Like, you'll see just a burned down hut in the middle of of what used to be a family home, and you'll find bodies and shit. And it makes you sad. And then you have characters that you do side missions with if you so choose. And like there's one character you meet early on named Lady Masako. Her whole family was fucking murdered by hired Japanese. Like not even the villain, which are the Mongols invading. But no, like she had her entire family, daughters and granddaughters. Like this woman is old as balls, and her entire family was wiped out.
Wow.
By assassins. And so you're helping her get revenge. And what's nice is they kind of show that morality factor. Like you have no play in it. And there's a couple of options for dialogue choices, but overall there's no morality. But you can, the conversations that you have with, oh, sorry, somebody's passing by with a big dick energy. One of those cars with big subwoofers. But she talks about getting revenge and judges everybody. She's very short with everybody because she's trying to find the killers, and you kind of have to talk her down at some points, and be the voice of reason behind it. So it's really interesting how they just kind of analyze all aspects of war from this game that takes place 800 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm really digging it. I think it's a lot of fun. If you like games like Horizon Zero Dawn, if you like, Shadows of Mordor, Lord of the Rings, if you like the Batman Arkham City, that type of open world environment, I definitely recommend this game. It's just really engrossing and really fun and just well put together from a lot of standpoints.
Yeah, I've been wanting to play it for just a long time. That was me being
sober for a minute, so
I've been wanting to play it for a long time, because I only played like an hour. I played basically the tutorial. I played up to the where the final boss kills you, and then you have to like regain your strength. And so
see, that's one thing the game does really well. These duels. So that's one aspect of the game
where
that I
every
really
fight
like.
Turns into like just a mini duel.
Well, no, not every fight. You can run along, if you run into just enemies at a camp, or if you find enemies on the road, which are really frequent. And like most games, I'd really be annoyed by that. Like if you're just riding along, even the main road, you'll run across a patch of like 3 to 6 enemies, and and you have the choice to fight either stealthily, take them head on, or just run. But you can do what's called a standoff. And you can start the fight with a standoff, which is really baller. And it's straight out of like an Akira Kurosawa film, where you approach the enemy and you've got your blade in its sheath, and the enemies got theirs ready, and they, you wait for them to attack, and what you do is you hold the R. I remap the buttons to map Elden Ring, where it's a light attack and heavy attack, R1 and R2. Yeah. And it starts out as square and triangle, and I remap that bullshit. But anyway, so I hold R2, and you wait for him to attack you, and then you release it, and he fucking slices the dude in half, and you can level up in the game to do more enemies in that standoff. So it starts out where you can only kill one at a time, but I'm up to 4.
So if 4 people are right next to you and
it's automatic.
You do that attack.
If you have 4, it depends on how many enemies are in the party, but like if you have 4 more, your guy starts with the 1, and you release the button, and he attacks, and then another one rushes at you, and you have to wait for the perfect time. You press the button again, he attacks again, another one comes at you, attack again.
Oh, it's like there's no cooldown on it. You can just do them all at once, but if you time it right.
And you got to time it right, because if you don't, then they get you, and no matter how high your health is, you'll be dropped to basically 1 hit point.
Makes sense.
So
you're taking a chance.
But it's not super hard, at least, at the moment. It gets incrementally more difficult as the game goes on. You encounter more difficult enemy types who become faster and more difficult to read. And then they start like faking you out, where they'll just kind of like do that to you. So you gotta have to read movements, but it's a really cool mechanic and a really baller way to feel like a samurai. So
yeah, that is the way that James Stephanie Sterling describes it. It is a fun samurai game.
Yeah,
if you want to play
Assassin's
a fun
Creed,
samurai game,
Japan.
Ghost of Tsushima is the fun samurai game that you're looking for. There is no better fun samurai game than that.
Definitely.
When a better one comes out, then that will be the fun samurai game. But for now, Ghost of Tsushima is the fun.
And it's just fun to ride around that game, and just like the world is so pretty. They do such a great job making Tsushima just look gorgeous. I mean, I've been to parts of Japan. We talked about that in a previous episode, and like just how well they designed the world overall. Like I said, there's a little bit of clipping here and there. It's like some bullshit on the lower micro level, but the macro is just gorgeous. So it's one of those games where you can just ride around and just be awed and be relaxed and have a good time with it. So
kind of sounds like how I felt when Elden Ring was released.
That game is like, there's nothing relaxing about that game.
Are you kidding? I played that game to relax.
You're a masochist.
It doesn't work.
Sorry. Yeah, I was gonna say, it doesn't work. Yeah. I was gonna say I spend most of my time trying to play that game and not break my controller. FromSoft is not known for relaxation.
Yeah,
they are the reason most gamers have high blood pressure.
Yeah, that's true. They just did a patch today. Yesterday or the day before, but very, very recently.
Because who knows when this episode's gonna hit? So
who knows when this episode drops? But it dropped recently. Patch 1.06, and they finally did what the annoying PvP players have been begging for. They nerfed the Rivers of Blood katana.
Why would they do that?
For those who don't
was
know,
amazing.
For those who don't know, in Elden Ring there was a katana called the Rivers of Blood, which had a secret ability or special ability that called Corpse Piler, which would just, you would swing the blade out and it would do these like huge like lines of blood far from where the sword was, and it would just, you could just swing rapidly and it would catch whoever was even remotely close to the blood swipes.
Can
confirm, and it would just fuck you up. And the PvP community was very upset for 2 reasons.
Oh no, one, not the PvP community, because it's such a PvP
because
game.
I know, because the PvP community acts so
you want to talk about toxic bullshit.
Toxic. Yeah, no, the PvP community of the From Software games is about the most toxic group of people.
Fuck
out
those
there.
assholes.
Like, I'm okay with like enjoying PvP, but the people who get super vocal about like, my needs are being met in terms of PvP, those people can straight up fuck off. And those are the people who got this weapon nerfed, and a lot of people are upset because this weapon was a very viable
build
PvE Yeah, it was a very viable build. It's still a decent weapon. It's just nowhere near the level that it was, and it in comparison, it just feels kind of shit, you know. And now nobody's gonna really want to engage with it, and that's kind of sad. That's a little sad, I have to admit. You know.
Yeah, I'm gonna lose sleep over that.
But they also nerfed the Bloodhound step, which was the ability to slide or glide around on the ground, and you would disappear just for momentarily. Like you would go invisible.
Yeah,
for
wasn't
like
that a ring
millisecond.
or something?
It was an Ash of War that you could apply to weapons and use as a special ability, and you could. It was especially effective. I would use it for pretty much one reason, and that was when you get to Stormvale Castle. Instead of going around the back entrance and doing all that bullshit and fighting that banished knight in the dark room, and he locks you there, like doing fuck all that bullshit, I would just have the gatekeeper open the gate, and then I would use Bloodhound Step to just get up the
sorry, how'd that go?
First area. I would just slide on up the front entrance pathway and right past the guards and be basically
in
at Godric in like 25 seconds from the front gate if you do it right. And
never do, so not gonna be a viable option for me.
Yeah, so I was just I got very good at it because I would do it for speed running. I don't do speed running in the traditional sense. I speed run builds. I speed run to certain points of the game to get certain weapons and certain items so that I can create a build out of for a character. That's what I find fun about that game. Besides the lore, yeah. But yeah, the patch on Elden Ring, it changed things that mostly only benefited the toxic PvP community.
Good, yeah,
good for them.
I mean, you'd think after because I mean they've had, you had Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, Bloodborne, Sekiro, and Elden Ring. You'd think they would have figured out how to like shut up the fucking toxicity, but I don't know.
I mean, you could say the same about Star Wars. Yeah. I just started hearing about this group called Christians Against the MCU.
Let's not go down that road. We'll down that. That's a long, unpaved road full of potholes and drunk thoughts, and let's not. But
I will give you both drunk thoughts and high opinions of my own on that one. Hold on, let me go get beer.
Right. I'll go find some edibles. We'll talk about this.
We'll get fucked. Hold on, actually, you know what? Let me buy those mushrooms I've been wanting to get.
Some mushroom mentions.
I want to get on another.
Is it finally time for cocaine comments? I want to do cocaine comments.
It's you gotta you have to get the cocaine, man. I have the mushrooms.
Assume I don't.
You gotta get the cocaine. Okay, then I'll get the mushrooms. That'll be a fun episode.
Something to behold. No, but you think like this game, this company's been around for a long time with some great games that they've really tweaked over the years that they'd kind of find a good balance. Especially, I mean, we were playing I've been playing Demon Souls a little bit. We were playing a little bit together, but I've been playing it myself. And first of all, fuck that game. Like,
yeah,
it's hard to go from Elden Ring to Demon Souls. Even the remake, it's still just balls hard.
Oh, I agree. Like I played Demon Souls through to the end for the first time just before Elden Ring came out, just like a few months before.
But then after you play Elden Ring and you're used to the mechanics, the remake,
and you get used to Elden Ring. Yeah, I went back and was playing with you and was honestly just frustrated and didn't want to play. I recently I first bought Dark Souls 3 on the Xbox. It was I didn't have a PlayStation like years ago, so I had an Xbox. And I was like, I want to play Dark Souls 3, so I bought it, and so I still technically own it on Xbox. So I downloaded it to just play some on the Xbox and rack up some G points for my Xbox account, and I just found myself frustrated
with Dark Souls 3
by the game. Dark Souls 3, yeah. And
that's
that's the thing. Yeah, and the thing is,
you need a high-minded minute on this.
I've been seeing a lot of people. I mean, I feel like I'm already kind of on a high-minded minute. But if you want to make it official, then I need you to take
a big old puff of that joint, then.
All right.
All right, folks.
Get the good shit.
Get limber, get loose. While Graham takes a big old hit of his oney. And we're going to get ourselves a high-minded minute. And while he's doing that, I'm going to grab a Coke. So give me a sec. And by Coke, I mean Coca-Cola, just for anybody who's questioning it. All right. Puff, 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 puff. Give us that high-minded minute on Dark Souls 3 on Xbox. I probably could have timed that better, but go with it. Fuck it.
Whatever. So I've got a problem that I gotta address really quick, and that is that people always fucking pine for the past. You know, they're always like, you know what, I like this new thing, but the last thing was better. Nostalgia, but not it's not necessarily like nostalgia is I usually attribute to very old things. Like, this was a long time ago, like the Star Wars trilogy. That's nostalgia. Nostalgia is not necessarily for something that happened 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. You know, that I don't consider that nostalgia. That just happened yet. You know, I don't even consider Dark Souls 1 or Demon Souls to fall into the category of nostalgia yet. Maybe in another 10 years, then those can count as nostalgia, but I don't know. So, but that's the thing, is every single FromSoft game that has come out, I always run into this same comment of like, this game was really good, but I preferred the last one. I like this game, but I preferred the last one. They did it with Dark Souls 1. They did it with Dark Souls 2. They did it with Demon Souls, with Dark Souls 3. They did it with Sekiro, Bloodborne. Like, they've done it with every single From Software game. And now they're doing it again with Elden Ring. And I have been seeing this everywhere, and like YouTube polls on my phone, or in like Facebook chat groups about Dark Souls and FromSoft stuff, and Instagram posts, comment sections. I see this everywhere of people just like, Elden Ring, I enjoy Elden Ring at first, but I just realized that Dark Souls 3 is so much better. The bosses are just so much better in Dark Souls 3. And that's always how it comes off. It always just comes off in that tone whenever I'm reading. They're like, I appreciate Elden Ring and all, but I just feel like they did it better in Dark Souls 3. I'm
gonna name that character Grumpy Graham.
Grumpy Graham. Yeah, they just did it better back then. They just did it better. Yeah. And so they've been doing that, and so I gave it a try. I was like, you know what? If you guys feel that way, I'm gonna go back and play Dark Souls 3, because Dark Souls 1 is my favorite game in the series, but Dark Souls 3 is like arguably the most smooth, mechanically smooth, and well put together game. So I went back and I downloaded Dark Souls 3 and playing it, and I played through most of the game. Basically, I only have the Twin Princes left, and then everything that comes after them, which is not much.
Yeah.
And I just have to say, it's not that good. Dark Souls 3 compared,
it's good.
What
it's
they
just
have
not
now,
as good as like Elden Ring.
It's still good.
Like they recognize
it's not as good as I remember
of their previous games. FromSoft was like, okay, this was good. How do we make it better? And somebody, after having games, since 1986, we've had this, but somebody finally stepped up and was like, let's give them a fucking jump button.
Yeah,
that's what Mario was based on in 1986. For fuck's sake, they finally gave us a jump button.
Well, the jump button is my favorite addition, but not just that. I think the best thing that Elden Ring did was it 95% fixed hitboxes. There are still occasional, like, that didn't hit me, but like 99% of the time, you can see that hit you. Yeah, that makes sense why you took damage there. And so going back to any of the other games at this point, you notice that immediately. Especially I've played probably up to like 300 hours of Elden Ring now. Find yourself a girlfriend, and I know. Someone who a girl who plays Elden Ring.
The pot can call the kettle calling the kettle black. So what the fuck do I know?
Yeah, I know. But anyway, to round off this high-minded minute, I just want to reiterate: please stop it with this bullshit of like, you know what, I like this game, but they did it better in the past. Because I always feel like these people are lying, because I always take them at their word. I go and try it for myself.
Stop believing shit you read on the internet.
I know, but well, I needed to have my own opinion. I couldn't just be like, well, I'll take them at their word. Dark Souls 3 is better.
That's fine. Make your own opinion.
Go back and
think
say
for
it
yourself.
myself.
That's good.
So they're wrong. they're
wrong.
just.
We'll just leave it at that.
They're all wrong. They're all wrong. So.
In the meantime, I'm gonna continue trying going through Demon Souls, but fuck, that game is just kicking my ass, my drunk ass left and right. Maybe I should play it sober. Maybe I'd be better if I played it sober.
That game does benefit from being
well. Then it begs the question:
so
when am I sober?
Intoxicated. Yeah,
we could be here a while thinking about this one.
We could be here a while, yeah.
You know, but I was thinking about it the other day.
I'll take never for 500. I'll take never for 500.
500. But I was thinking about this the other day. You mentioned something back when I first started playing Demon Souls that I thought was very interesting, and I've been thinking about it ever since I played. That Demon Souls was kind of like a precursor, like a proof of concept for what that series could become. And I thought that was a very interesting take. It was kind of like, for lack of the better phrase, a beta test. Now, most games go through a beta test, but like it was almost like a beta game. It's like, hey, we have an idea of how a game could become, but we don't know if this can be good enough. So let's do something simple to see if this floats or not.
Have you ever played a game in early access?
No. Alpha. You're talking about like alpha stage basically, or beta. That's usually what early access means. It's like, you're playing a beta version of the game. Yeah. It's a precursor to what the game is supposed
exactly.
to be.
So I think of games like Demon Souls as being that. They're early they are early access games before early access. Back when there wasn't a concept for that, there wasn't a concept for like, we want to make sure that this is working, and we want to release this game, but we want the public to give us an opinion. Back then it was, we don't know if this game is working. We're going to make a small game, like a relatively small game, and release it. And then if people like it, we'll do another one and a bigger one. And that's what Demon Souls was. It's all in all, like, for if you know what you're doing, it's a 10-hour, or it's a 5-hour game. If you don't know what you're doing, it's a 15 to 20 hour.
And if you're like me, it's like a 30-hour
relatively game. Short. Yeah, if it's a relatively short game, in comparison to most big budget games. Dark Souls 1, for somebody who knows what they're doing, is a 15-hour game.
We're not talking about speed running and glitches and bypasses. Just if you know what you're doing and you play the game in its entirety without skipping bosses, if you go from one boss to the next, it's like 15 to 20 hour game.
25
play
hour
casually and not die every 10 seconds like I do, then it's like
and then, so of course, a lot of people who just don't know or are not prepared for that sort of game and just want to play fast, like most games do, like just move quickly, they die very quickly and then end up dying over and over and over again. And so
poster child,
it happens. Right, it happens. Yeah. So ever since then the games have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and better. Yeah. And that's another thing. People have been complaining about reused assets in Elden Ring, specifically Elden Ring. A lot of bosses were reused or redone several times.
Your movement patterns are the same.
Oh yeah.
Now they've been reprogrammed to be smoother and better hitboxing and movement and stuff, but like how you move is the same. How you look when you move is the same. It's one thing that's like I actually kind of thought was endearing about the Dark Souls and Elden Ring and even Bloodborne is like it looks like they just kept the same character models and they just kept refining it and making it better and better. But like,
as you go through the game,
a great sword still sits on your shoulder and you still do the same swipe across how you do it.
Yeah,
the movement is still the same. It's just better.
Yeah, what I meant was bosses. Like in Elden Ring, a lot of the bosses were repurposed over and over again throughout Elden Ring. So
you face the same thing like 4 times.
You fight Margit twice. You fight Margit and then Morgott, and there's also another option to fight him out in the battlefield around Leyndell Capital,
one of the
city.
Jails or whatever, right?
And then and then there's Godric, and then there's then there's the jail for God of Froy. Yeah, there's all these like repurposed bosses. You fight like 4 different versions of the Magma Worm. You fight a bunch of like Crucible Knights. There's a bunch of bosses that are repurposed. But all in all, there's about 50 different.
It still is a shit ton of variety.
Like boss types. Yeah, there's still a shit ton of variety. And so I was thinking about it. All the previous games, all of them, except for Dark Souls 2, which had about 40 bosses, 41, 42 bosses in it. All the other games have had roughly 18 to 25 bosses. I think Dark Souls 1 had like 23, Bloodborne had 18, Dark Souls 3 had like 25 or 26.
And are you including
Demon Souls
DLCs
had like
in those
20. I'm including
of which
DLC
Elden Ring has 0 at the moment.
Which at the moment, has
as
0.
Of the
and Elden Ring right now, as of this recording, Elden Ring and hasn't even announced it yet. But Elden Ring,
take the hint from Soft,
has probably about. I'll pull that number back a bit. 45 unique bosses
40
or enemies that are bosses. 40, still a shit ton. and then most of, like, I'd say 20 to 25 of them are repurposed, and like 10, 15 of them are never. There's probably 10 bosses that are only done
like
once.
Radagon
and then the
Elden
other
Beast, the final bosses, or Melania,
Elden
or whatever
Beast, Millennia and the Fire Giant and Malekith. Like there are quite a few bosses that are never redone, and like 10, 15 of those ones. And then there's like 30, 40 bosses that are repurposed like 3-4 times. So compare that with this giant fucking game to the past games. How many different varieties of bosses are, how many like run-ins you have with different bosses, even if they are repurposed, and just tell yourself, well, is this a reasonable jump from the last game? And I think it is. They went from Sekiro, which had like 25 bosses, I think, to this with so many more. And some of them were repurposed, but they had just as much uniqueness as Sekiro, in my opinion. So I think that it's okay. And you remember in like Zelda games and Final Fantasy games, often early bosses, like sometimes the tutorial boss, will become a common enemy or like overpowered boss later.
You want to talk about, you want to go
That's
back?
That's a common trope.
That is how the first Final Fantasy game was. The OG Final Fantasy, your first boss to face was Garland, and it turns out he's the big bad at the end of the game.
Yes, but no, but his character model, and his abilities, as the just basic Garland, became the knights later on in the game. So they like all classic games have always done this.
Case in point
they do it as a way of
Zelda did the same thing. I mean,
yeah.
you go back to, you want to harken back to Zelda: A Link to the Past. You fight Aghanim after you collecting the 3 penance. So it's like the 4th boss, I want to say, give or take, you fight in the game. And that's the game that started the volley. You do the dead man's volley, where you bounce the ball back and forth by slashing your sword at the same time. And that's how you fight Aghanim as the 4th boss. And then at the end of the game, and you finally realize that he's just Ganon in disguise, supposedly, that's how you fight him again.
Yeah.
So look at
Link's Awakening.
I'm sure does the same thing. I haven't beaten that game yet, so I don't quite know. I know it's a little bit of a sin. I'm hoping to get it on Switch.
Just like a boss.
I know
spoiler?
that most of the spoiler, because I know
so basically
Ganon appears as like a version of the final boss.
You fight all the bosses in each of the dungeons. Each dungeon has their own unique, or each temple has their own unique boss.
Yeah,
and then at the very end of Link's Awakening, you basically fight all of them as a boss rush. You fight each one as a boss rush. So that's a classic example of like they test your ability. They're like, hey, do you remember fighting these enemies? And Elden Ring does that in just a modern degree. Elden Ring is the perfect example of a modern classic game. And I mean classic in the sense of it feels like an original video game, like an original concept, like an original Zelda game. One of the original Zelda games where they just dropped you into the world and said, go.
That aspect,
explore the world.
It doesn't feel original from the aspect of
gameplay.
Well, because it still feels like a Dark Souls game. It's still
that's not what
it still plays out like exactly. It just depends on the prism of how you're looking at it.
What I meant to say is it feels like one of the original video games.
It
like Zelda games did. Those games like when you played the first Zelda game ever, you were dropped into that and you're like, I feel like this is the first video game ever. Like this is like I'm just being given the concept of a video game here, a little character in the world who runs around. Like
if you've never played another game before, or another FromSoft game, it's a good entry point in the sense that it just kind of gives you everything you need and then just lets you go, and you just explore the world and you figure it out as you go, or hopefully, I don't know. I've always thought that FromSoft is a little too convoluted for the common man's, common woman's, common person's taste,
but the concept that you were talking about, the proof of concept video game, like that, I think that's it's evolved into early access at this point, and so I don't think that we're going to be getting a lot more, or if any, proof of concept video games anymore. We did get Mortal Shell, which I believe.
I was just going to say that as well. When you were just saying that, Mortal Shell is the first game that stuck out in my head. That was like, that game felt like a proof of concept too. I mean,
it was. It didn't do much in terms of story or world building.
No, it had nothing on that.
It was very much just about the combat, and
even that was iffy.
Yeah, and it could have been being played on the PS4. Who knows? But I don't know. We'll have to see if the studio that worked on Mortal Shell delivers anything bigger or better.
I'm just trying to think of some other modern examples. I mean, Mortal Shell, it wasn't a bad game. It was definitely influenced by Dark Souls and the FromSoft games. And it wasn't a bad game, but just felt shallow as all get out. Just like, it's like, all right, try this out and let's see what you think. And I think a lot of games have done that in the past. So it's I'm just trying to think of more examples. But Rum is a little hell, and I've put a good dent in this, so
you're a little tipsy there.
But just we're talking, I think just talking recent games, Demon Souls, even Gears of War 1 was a big one. Mortal Shell, I definitely think was a proof of concept. look at like sometimes the games that release in their early stages and they've developed over time. Look at like No Man's Sky, the way that game came out, and they continuously worked on it to make it it came out and it was just a piece of shit, and then just became a juggernaut. And like, I mean, so it's amazing what you can do when people continuously work on these games.
And then you have series like Final Fantasy, which every single game in the series is a proof of concept. Yeah. Every single game in the series is a proof of... They're always trying to improve the system, and
I think 1 through 6 were kind of similar. They didn't really do a whole lot of innovation.
Yeah,
I think the only thing they really did was maybe the active time battle, but 1 through 6 are kind of the same. And then 7 was just the 3D version, but then 8 they really started to experiment, which was nice. And they haven't really stopped experimenting since. And as we've discussed in the past, 7 remake, I think, has definitely
they nailed it. And now they're moving away, and I it's breaking my heart that I see them moving away from it. 16 is like they're losing the party members. Final Fantasy mainline games have not felt like Final Fantasy since 12. Or 13. I would argue 13 as for all the shit that I gave it.
The second half of 13. 13 starts shittily, but when you get all the party members together finally halfway through the game,
there you go.
Then it works. And I would say 15 was
tried. I don't think
you don't
it doesn't
like it.
Feel it doesn't feel but it doesn't feel like Final Fantasy to me. It doesn't, like, the interactions with the characters. It feels like it's its own thing. It feels like it's its own.
See, I would argue
weird.
I can get that.
World.
I can understand that, but I would almost argue
like Final Fantasy.
I would counter with it does in a condensed form. It gives you instead of a roster of characters, because Final Fantasies are usually a roster of characters. What Final Fantasy between 1 and 15, I think the first one and 15 are the only ones that really give you 4 characters.
5.
Does 5 do that?
You have 5 characters, but one of them dies and gets replaced by their granddaughter.
Fair enough.
So you have
sparse. My point kind of still stands. So it's very sparse. Usually in a Final Fantasy game, you have a shit ton of characters with a shit ton of opinions and a shit ton of viewpoints and a shit ton of backstory.
Like
for 15, I kind of dug that it was like
6, 7, 8, and 9. You could literally on the map just call in and out characters and switch out your party at will.
Yeah, but like, well, even 6. 6 had a shit ton of characters, and I know 4 had a bunch of rotating characters. Yeah, like they've all had a rotating cast, but like I know 1, you start with your Warriors of Light and you end with the Warriors of Light.
Yeah,
and I haven't played 5 yet with Bart's, but I'm going to take your word for it. But then there's 15. So we're talking over the course of give or take 30 years. It's the first Final Fantasy game that's like, all right, here's your 4 main characters. And yes, they're the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which came out in the late 80s. But they still have their own distinctive personalities, and you stick with them throughout the entire story. And they all voice their opinion thoroughly. So I agree with you. It's not great, but I do appreciate them trying something new with these characters because the story is garbage in 15. I thought the story, especially in the game, because they relied way too much on the external content, like the movie Kingsglaive, which is basically the fucking intro movie. If you ever played an old school video game and you left it on the title screen for 30 seconds, it plays the intro movie. That's what Kingsglaive was, and that's what it should have been. But no, they're like, oh, we're gonna make money and release it as a Blu-ray, and we're gonna be a money grubbing assholes. Square Enix said,
yeah.
And so they gave you Kingsglaive, and here you have a game that would have once you've understood the story, it's like, oh, it's not bad, but it just presentation is so bad, and so it really just came down to the character interaction. I personally, because we've talked about in the past, I'm so neurotic and I love consistency. I liked that it was the same 4 guys throughout the story, and they give you a consistent roster. You didn't have to worry about because that was one of my biggest beefs with 7, and I haven't played through 8 or 9. But my biggest beef with 7 is like you go into a town, and depending on who is in your party, is how the town will react to you. So, like, if you walked into whatever, if you walked into the hometown of Barrett, I don't remember what town name it is. It's been so long.
Without Barrett,
you got like a generic intro. But like if you walked in with Barrett, then it became much more emotional, much more. There was much more to that story. And I hate the idea of playing through a Final Fantasy game or an RPG in that general. I hate the idea of missing out on content. And yes, that helps. I can understand
Games
why there's replayability, and it's like, oh well, you played through it once, and you had Tifa and Aerith in your party. Now play it again with Red 13 and Barrett in your party and see what happens. But I'm sorry, when the game takes 60 hours,
like that aspect.
I appreciate it from a business standpoint, but I don't like it,
as you know,
because it's like I'm not going to go play through a 60-hour game again just to see what the alternative decisions were.
That's fair.
Unless I know they're going to significantly impact it, like a morality system, like KOTOR. Like, that's when I'll replay it.
I usually will end up... My method is to just play the game normally, and then at the end, read online, like, oh, these are the alternates. This is what happens in the alternates. And then if I feel like it, I'll go back. And if I want to experience one of them, I'll do it. Yeah. But I never feel an obligation to do that.
See, I do. I hate the idea of that I'm missing out on content because of the decisions I'm making in a grandiose game. Like if it's a minor thing, like just a small blip, I'm not so worried about it. But when it comes to a Final Fantasy game where it's all about the story, either the characters or the world, and you're putting 60 hours into this game, I hate the idea that I'm missing out, and it bugs me. Final Fantasy X. I thought Final Fantasy X did a great job where it was like, okay, you're going to get the same story throughout the entire game, no matter what. But based on the decisions and the dialogue options that you choose, whoever like throws Titus the blitz ball at the end during his final overdrive can change between Lulu, Riku, or Yuna. Mm-hmm. And obviously you want Yuna, but based on the decisions, it could be Lulu. I think the first time I played through 10, it was Lulu for me. And I mean, I'll admit to a little disappointment, but at the same time, I don't feel like I lost out on part of the game.
I think the reason I don't have an issue with this is because I grew up on Fire Emblem games. And Fire Emblem...
And that's all about decisions.
Literally Fire Emblem is every single map you could make a decision that will affect the end game. And because like in the very end, it goes through and it tells you exactly what happens to all the characters after the game is ended, and they have a different ending for literally all the different possibilities. So if a character dies, they have an option for that. If a character gets together with another character, they have a whole history for what happens with those two characters together. If the character lives and doesn't end up in a relationship, they have a ending for that. They have like 2 or 3 endings for that, depending on what happens usually. So I grew up literally like I learned to read.
Accustomed to it, you got trained.
Those are the games I grew up on.
I'm used to games that had definitive endings.
Yeah,
the biggest variance I had growing up, and I know it's only in the post, is like how much skin do you see of Samus Aran? Yeah. If you beat the game in a certain amount of time, she's in no clothes or she's fully clothed.
That's fair.
That was like the biggest change in the ending of the games I grew up.
Yeah, that's fair. For me, I grew up learning that games have different endings and different results, and so I got kind of predispositioned to be a rewatch whore or a replay whore, because I love it. You know me, I love to rewatch shows that I've seen before, and I love to
who's got the time, man? That's 60 hours to replay through a game that you've already played through. I'm sorry, I can't. I have a hard time putting my mind around that.
Whatever. It's anyway. Especially fun with games that actually design you like a path for it, like the new new Fire Emblem games have designed like Fire Emblem 3 Houses designed it so that you would play through it 3 times, and I haven't even done that yet.
And something like that. Now that I will agree with and say You know, like that's okay.
Yeah.
Or as I mentioned earlier, like a Knights of the Old Republic type game,
or Nier Automata.
Nier Automata,
which
you know, games
technically
that
when that
will
game
give you
ends, it doesn't end. That's the thing, is like,
yeah, we're not gonna. That game has like 7 different endings. We're not gonna talk about that one. But a game that like rewards you throughout the entire game by making different decisions, I can get behind that. Especially games with morality systems like Fable, where you can be a good dude and a bad dude, or a girl, debate, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
You can be good or bad in morality. Or Mass Effect, those games where it carries over, you can carry it over from Mass Effect 1,
I
2,
do
3.
like that in Mass Effect, yeah.
That's fun. But to play a game like Final Fantasy VII, where 90% of the game is going to be the same, with 10% being different based on the the characters you enter a town with.
Yeah,
that's
okay.
Not enough.
I can understand you there. So like even in Fire Emblem, like every map, depending on what characters you had, if you let characters die that were supposed to be there, they wouldn't have that dialogue. But for the most part, if you were like me, where I lost a character, restart the map, play, start over, like start from the save. But in that case, like whenever you get to a map, the characters that were relevant would be there to talk about what was happening in the map, and then you would do the area, do the level, and then move on. So I can agree with you on that, and I think that for the most part, like later games fixed that. You know, even Final Fantasy 8 and 9 kind of fixed that for the most part.
I think
like,
people realized it wasn't a great mechanic and fixed it pretty quick. Or even like
and especially because in 7, like with characters like Yuffie and Vincent, you know, if you choose to play with them, they're optional characters. And so their dialogue for most of the game is just kind of like generic, entirely like, oh my god, yeah, and then like like that's the thing is,
hello new ringtone.
Yeah, most of the characters
oh my god,
most of the characters in Final Fantasy 7 will have like full like, oh my god, what's going on here sort of reactions when something goes down in the game. And then Vincent and Yuffie are always just walk in and they won't have like that special dialogue. They'll just literally just be, oh my god.
Yeah, it's a one-line bullshit. So
yeah.
Well, speaking of endings, we've been going on for an hour and a half. I think we should wrap this up in a nice hot tortilla.
I think so. I think this was good. I enjoyed this. This was a very nice topic.
A solid ending.
I enjoyed. I think we had a nice discussion.
Did you? Did you know?
I did.
I think we need to finish it up because I gotta pee like none other.
All right, then.
Turns out rum and cokes go right through you, folks. Who knew?
Then I think that we should say good night. Where, if people are interested, can they find you, Corey, outside of Drunk Thoughts and High Opinions?
In the bucket bathroom taking a piss.
If you say this every time, it's gonna get a little old. What?
Well, then you need to phrase your question better.
Are there any other
phrasing?
Any other major malfunctions that you have that you
are able to? Dude, how much time you got?
You're able to talk about in other forms, such as a website or
I do have a website. I do have a website. It is extremely long in the URL, so I won't list it here. But if you'd care to find it, you can definitely hit me up on Facebook or Instagram, both by just searching the name Rokesyboy, ROKESYBOY, and you'll find me and my website of various bullshit.
Yeah. And you can, of course, find me at Outrageous Creation on Instagram, and my website
underscore in between.
Underscore in the middle, yeah. And my website, mad-musings.com, is still under maintenance, but it will be up and running soon. I'm very excited for that because I want to show the world some of my writing. Yeah, it will be fun. So that's it for this week. This has been Drunk Thoughts and High Opinions. I'm Graham, and that hideous monstrosity is Corey. He wouldn't say his name. I was cueing him to say,
I wasn't sure if that was a cue or not.
I was trying to let it be natural, and you just never did anything.
Step up. It just great,
you just never took it. So this is.
I wasn't sure. I was like, is he handing it over? If he's not, I don't quite know where he's going with this. But yes, I your drunk thoughts, aka.
And I'm your high opinions. Good night.